Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ojy.
Hi,
good morning.
Emmanuel. Good morning.
Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
We've been having a real encounter with another doctor who is gunning for the presidency.
Maybe I should run for presidency, one of these days too.
Are you campaigning now, Dr. Abati?
I feel really inspired.
When you find the courage to do so, let me know.
Okay,
you'll
be my director of campaign.
Let's start this review of newspapers with This Day as usual.
Okay.
The lead story, Amosun, Sani, others lose out as APC submits candidates list to INEC. Presents candidates for Zamfara. 84 parties beat deadline. Yesterday was the deadline, and 84 parties, which is quite impressive. 84 out of 91 parties submitted.
Yeah?
So we should expect a crowded ballot paper, as we have always envisaged. But
this is from This Day, right?
This Day, yes, This Day.
You always like to start with This Day.
Yes. And I've given you one reason. There are more. I don't want to unfold them yet.
But it's good that INEC made good to resolve, the deadline, correct? I mean,
no, the deadline was fixed long ago, and it's just for the parties to comply.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that a number of parties are having crises here and there, factions, right faction or wrong faction. But all that will be sorted out in the course of time, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, you probably have a lot of litigation.
Yes, litigation.
Out there, people saying they were the rightful
candidates, pre-election litigation.
Yes, and they will go to court to assert their rights.
To assert their rights, as it were. But above the masthead, above the lead story, just below the masthead of This Day, federal government plans slimmer budget for 2019 to reduce deficit. At last, the government seemed to be listening to critics and criticisms from across the globe about its handling of the economy, bloated budget, borrowing to finance budget, increasing the debt profile of the country. They seem to be listening that the 2019 budget will be considerably lower than the 2018.
Well, there are provisions for minimum wage in the budget.
That has not been
fixed. The big issue is about, having a disciplined, budget cycle. I mean, in many cases, the government will promise, when it is close to the end of the year, you will have promises about, getting the budget cycle right. But at the end of the day, look at what has happened this year. For months, just arguments over the budget, and they're still at it. At the end of the day, this has implications for budget performance. Since this government got to power, I don't think they've been able to do, in terms of budget performance, anything above maybe 20%. It's been consistently under 20%.
And nobody seems to be talking about that. Both the legislature and the executive, they just gloss over the performance.
Yeah, because the budgeting process is always politicized, and the back and forth over, and the budget is an appropriation act. It's an act, it's a law.
Yes.
And it takes forever. And usually the kind of messaging process that comes out is quarrel over, constituency allowance, over who controls what within the budget, what estimate, what is the breakdown. I think that the greatest assurance that they can give us is that we'll have a tidy process, as regards 2019, instead of the politicization, the distraction that we have.
What, really?
Well,
I mean, even if we give the assurance,
by doing the proper thing, both on the side of the executive and on the side of the legislature. And then Nigerians will not like to see a situation whereby there's really not much thought that goes into the budget. One budget is almost a reproduction of the other budget. And you wonder, what are the budget experts or advisors? What exactly are they doing?
Okay, let's move on.
Instead of copy and paste budgeting.
Well, Daily Sun, the lead story, 2019, Buhari's in-law Amosun Abe lose out as APC submit list for candidates to INEC. But below the photograph on the front page of Daily Sun, the flooding that is happening across Nigeria is still a major issue. We see photographs every day, especially in a place like Bayelsa, where the state capital, a number of areas and beyond the state capital are submerged in flood. But there's a story below that, the photograph in the Daily Sun. Waste collection. Lagos Assembly orders PSP back to work. Yes, the visionscape, a vision that somehow turned out to be not so visionary, if you ask me.
The question to ask is the management of refuse, of waste, right? Is it the responsibility of the legislature or is it an executive function? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know, I know that the House of Assembly can play an oversight role, but is the House of Assembly in a position, you know, to perform certain executive functions? To, for example, appoint for the executive arm of government who should collect something as basic as waste? Because that's a question that I raise here. And I raise this question within the context of the circumstances in which the governor of Lagos State has found himself, right? He seems to be in a weak position now. They've been dangling the threat of impeachment in his face, you know, and then you can't have this kind of, arrogance by the legislature, the House of Assembly, dictating, you know, who should be collecting waste in Lagos. The second leg of it is that I assume that the Lagos State government has a contract with Visionscape, right? What are the implications for the contractual obligations between the Lagos State government and the people managing refuse right now in Lagos State?
I believe Visionscape is claiming that they haven't been paid.
At the risk of, so that we don't run the risk of trying to politicize the issue.
Yeah.
The state of waste disposal in Lagos State today is below par.
It has become an eyesore.
I raised two points.
Just let me land. I was trying to avoid using that word eyesore, but you did.
Yes.
And which is the correct description.
Yes.
And the House of Assembly, if they only made a pronouncement, which the executive should, if you ask me, implement, not that they are taking over the implementation. Visionscape has not worked. We live in Lagos, we see their performance, and they are saying the PSP should go back. Don't forget that when Visionscape took over, there was massive complaint from these PSP operators. Mm-hmm. And in response to that, the governor now said they should go and work with Visionscape, the PSP operators. Mm-hmm. So if perhaps that advisory was not effected, and the House of Assembly is now saying PSP return to work, then because in the law, the name of Visionscape was written into the law, which many quarreled about. And we heard then that, it was a mistake, that was not the intention. And the law said that Visionscape and any other refuse disposal company.
Yeah.
So, well, you see, I have not addressed my question, the two questions that I raised.
Yeah.
You know, we all live in Lagos here, that there is politics to it. In fact, one of the reasons that Ambode was shunted aside and was denied a second time, Visionscape was a big issue there. He was accused of having created a situation whereby persons who were, to use a common phrase, who were eating, you know, through the system of refuse collection, had been, removed.
You know, I said we should
and
not,
because of
we
that,
should not run the risk of
they said Visionscape was his own idea, he and his friends and all of that. So you cannot remove the politics of it from it. But of course, the governor. That's a different question. That's an entirely different question.
One, yes, you said the PSPs. Yes, many of the PSP owned by political bigwigs. Were they working? Yes, they were working. Is Visionscape working? Not quite. So
what is the reason why they are not working? So they've come out to say that they've not been paid. I mean, can you just
don't let's split hairs over this. I'm sure other stakeholders who are watching us.
We need cleaner Lagos. Period.
All right.
Whether Visionscape or PSP, we need cleaner Lagos.
Exactly.
As a principle.
Yes.
Okay.
The Guardian, Nigeria's The Guardian. APC defies INEC submits Zamfara candidates list. The Guardian. Then, underneath that story, there is another story. PDP protests against dissolution of Osun Poll Tribunal. Yesterday, there was this protest. Lawyers for the People's Democratic Party who were pursuing their case in the election tribunal after the Osun election, only to discover that the tribunal has been disbanded with no word as to when it will be reconstituted. And don't forget that we have a 180 days window for a post-election litigation to be concluded. And they are crying foul, the PDP in Osun State.
Well, I'm sure the tribunal will be reconstituted. And the thing to ask is, what is the reason for the dissolution? I mean, sometimes even some members of an election tribunal may say they are opting out. In some cases, we have had, members of the tribunal saying that the particular location was not safe for them, and they had to sit elsewhere in Abuja. But at the end of the day, the petitioner, in this case the PDP candidate, he has every right under the Constitution to place his complaints before the tribunal, which is the first court of destination. And after that, he can go, to higher courts. To deny him the right for his petition to be heard will be most unthinkable.
Let's hope that is not the case. Now, the Daily Trust Governing Council suspends NHIS boss, Professor Usman Yusuf. He was suspended some time ago for alleged fraud, huge fraud, and he was recalled by the president, who in a letter asked him to go and work harmoniously with the Honorable Minister of Health. Now, the council of the NHIS haven't gone through petitions and allegations against, has placed him on indefinite suspension, and that the matter has to be looked into properly. Well, for President Buhari, whose administration recalled him after he was suspended, I hope they will not recall him again and will get to the roots of this matter. Okay. Huge fraud in the NHIS.
Well, I mean, I think the bigger question to raise is how the National Health Insurance Scheme has been mismanaged, even since its inception. There have been always accusations, allegations about fraud, poor leadership, and I think that whoever is leading Nigeria needs to take a critical look at the management of the insurance scheme. When the idea of the insurance scheme came up, it was something to help Nigerians, to reduce the level of out-of-pocket spending on healthcare, and also to reduce the risks, that people face. But that hasn't worked very well. And even among the people complaining, this may be an internal thing in terms of administration. Even the HMOs, the health management organizations, they are not getting the best out of the scheme because at the level of policy, there's been no quality support, the kind that is expected even by the HMOs themselves.
Okay. It's a good idea, badly managed over time. Yeah. Access to health care, the vast majority of Nigerians being toyed with. Yeah.
And in a country where, there is serious crisis of malnutrition, communicable diseases, maternal morbidity, maternal mortality, high rates.
This can be mismanaged, It's so ridiculous when all these things happen. Healthcare is one of the most important things in our country, and
in your world.
In the whole world. But first of all, let's manage healthcare. Poverty rate is huge. In America, there's so much incentive for the poor people, the poor persons in Nigeria, to get access to just simple healthcare. And if this cannot work in Nigeria, what can work?
Let's hope we'll get to the root of that. The Punch newspaper: electricity problem can't be solved by magic. That's according to Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, Minister of Works, Housing and Power, right? Yes, former governor of Lagos State, who, as governor of Lagos State, berated the federal government, that any serious government
will provide
should be able to solve the electricity problem within 6 months.
Everyone just says whatever they want to say.
3.5 years down the line, he's not saying the problem, solving electricity problem is not the problem. It's not for magicians. It's not for magicians.
Whoever told you it was for magicians?
Well, we've been hearing a lot of...
This is not the first time we're hearing this. You will recall when the late Chief Buhari was appointed Minister of Power.
Yes.
He too said, he will perform magic. Fashola, former governor of Lagos State, when he made that statement, he thought it would be easy.
Yeah.
But if we throw back to, the Obasanjo era, one of the things that, Chief Buhari later disclosed was that, look, there seems to be a mafia, in Nigeria that does not want the electricity process to work. But since then, we've moved, several steps forward with the emergence of the GENCOs, the DISCOs, and also the appointment of managers for the transmission company of Nigeria. But I think it's unfortunate if he says this, because power is so central to productivity.
And
as one of our guests pointed out here.
It is not rocket science.
No, don't sound like him now, as he sounded before they make you Minister of Power. And you come back and you also say, oh, this thing is not by magic.
Maybe that's the best way to pitch for the Minister of...
He already has started. But in any case...
When you say it is not rocket science, we can deal with it, then you will be considered.
You are committing his own error.
Okay, so Emmanuel, in any case, has he highlighted any challenge?
He's been talking about the problems, how we cannot solve it, how we raise generation to 9,000 megawatts. And it's the same minister who said we are generating 7,000 and we cannot evacuate all. You can only evacuate less than, is it 4,000 or... and you are generating 7,000.
We had a guest on this program, Kola Additional,
yes,
who is one of the owners of the Ikeja Disco. And he pointed out many of the challenges that they are facing. And we used that occasion to look at a number of issues. But the problem, one central problem that came out of that conversation was that there doesn't seem to be enough synergy between the Ministry of Power and those GENCOs and DISCOs. And the GENCOs and DISCOs are saying, look, we're in this for money. Unless we have the right kind of multi-year tariff system, unless you address other issues, including that of, preferred customers and all of that, then, of course, it will not be a profitable business for them. It will not make sense for them to, download energy that they cannot get proper returns for. And we had that argument, and I was accusing him of capitalism and all of that. Yeah. So there are issues to be addressed, and I get that if there's greater cooperation between the ministry, between the government, the executive, and other players within that sector, and they do a lot more in terms of the off-the-grid initiative that they have introduced, probably we will see the improvement that we seek.
Okay, so since we didn't take international stories yesterday...
Yes, we just have to do that today.
Let's take some
Now, let's
today.
start with the UK, where Theresa May, of course, in the eye of the storm. The first story here from the Times of UK, revolt grows over May's handling of Brexit talks. Within the Conservative Party, both MPs in support, the Leave and the Brexit MPs, they are all up in arms against Theresa May for her handling, for making unusual concessions at the last EU summit without carrying the cabinet along, especially the proposal to extend the transition period. And that's what the Times of UK is reporting. But the Guardian UK, EU push to help May avoid no deal Brexit, apparently impressed by her concession. EU leaders, including Angela Merkel, are also trying to help her. In fact, they're saying they will try to build a coalition of the reasonable by talking to MPs to back her. Okay. So
They're considering also an extension?
Yes, no, it's something that resonates well with the leaders, that if that's what it will take to get a proper deal, why not?
Okay.
But the cabinet are not taking any of that. But let's go a bit soft. Human interest story, Daily Mirror, as violent crime soars 19%. Hero dad is battered to death as he confronts yachts. Drug gangs who were selling drugs in front of this man's flat. He came out and challenged them and was battered to death.
Wow.
Yes, quite horrifying. At a time, data just released show that violent crime rate has gone up 19% in the UK. The government has been talking about this, putting measures in place, but they need to
do a lot more.
But perhaps, let's look at this story. It's in the Mail, and it's in the Daily Mirror and Daily Mail, where David Beckham, the popular footballer turned businessman, begs, marriage to Victoria is always hard work.
Every marriage requires hard work.
Did he come out? Did he actually say this, or
Two newspapers reporting the same story. But what I found quite...
He's stating the obvious.
Yes.
I mean, a man will tell you that marriage is hard work. A woman will also say, oh, it's hard work.
If a Daily Mail puts it this way, Beckham, my marriage to Porsche is such hard work.
Yes.
Hard work, you marry a popular woman, she's rich,
that's what it's supposed
pretty.
To be. You know, even if the woman
and
is not
she has
popular.
given you 4 lovely children, yet you are saying marriage to Victoria is such a hard work.
Yeah.
Becca, please give us a break.
I'm sure marriage to him too is
a lot of hard work.
It's
even harder work.
I'm telling you, look how handsome he is.
You are marrying another woman's husband.
I knew I was going to get him.
Look, I hope he's not trying to discourage men from marrying popular, famous women.
Say he's such a handsome man.
Yes.
On television.
But he is handsome.
Okay. Victoria Beckham will sue you for seduction. You are trying to seduce our husband.
All right, this was so much fun.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for joining us in this segment. It's time now for a short break. When we return, Victoria Peppel will be here with a review on what's trending. Stay with us.